Hello, Leo. Let me ask you something right off the bat. Have you been feeling like something you can't quite name, is about to shift? As if the universe has been whispering behind the scenes, lining up synchronicities, stirring a sense that you're on the edge of a breakthrough? If that's what brought you here, then no, it's not a coincidence. You were meant to find this message, right here, right now. Welcome to Eternal Mindfulness, your sanctuary for deep astrological insight, cosmic truth, and soulful clarity. This isn't just another horoscope video. This is a soul-aligned transmission channeled especially for Leo energy, and if you're watching this, you've already stepped through a spiritual doorway. Over the next few minutes, we're going to unlock what's happening in your inner and outer world, why you've been feeling mentally heavy, emotionally scattered, or like you're stuck in a loop you can't seem to break out of. But here's the truth, you're not stuck. You're simply standing in the hallway between the old version of yourself and the new reality that's about to emerge. Astrologically, this is a time of deep realignment for Leo. Energetic portals are opening, subtly but powerfully, and the messages coming through the cards and your cosmic chart are nothing short of transformative. And within the next 48 hours, there will be a sign. A whisper. A clue. A person. A shift. Something is coming to show you the way forward. But first, let me say this. Thank you. Thank you from the depths of my heart for your presence here. Every like, every comment, every moment you spend with Eternal Mindfulness means more than you know. Your support keeps this sacred space alive. It allows us to bring forward these transformational messages and connect like-minded souls from around the world. So if this video finds you in a moment of reflection, transition, or just plain uncertainty, you are exactly where you need to be. And I honor you for showing up. Now, I invite you to take a deep breath. Set an intention. And if you're open to it, comment below with the first angel number that comes to your mind. 111, 333, 717, or anything at all. That number is not random. It's your sign. A confirmation that you're aligned with something greater. And Leo, believe me when I say this. You'll want to stay with me until the very end. Because what the universe is revealing today is powerful. Not just predictive, but activating. Not just guidance, but permission to rise. So, what brought you here today? What feeling, what thought, what alignment called you toward this moment? Because this is where your shift begins. Let's dive in. There are moments in life when the stillness of night is anything but quiet. Your body lies down, but your mind stays awake, racing, spiraling, looping through what ifs and what nows. This is the space the Nine of Swords inhabits. Not as an enemy, but as a messenger. When this card appears, it's not simply pointing to stress or sleepless nights. It's revealing the deep emotional friction that arises when your current reality no longer matches the truth emerging within you. Something inside is ready to evolve, but the surface of your life hasn't caught up yet. That's where the inner dissonance begins. The Eight of Swords, arriving alongside, deepens the story. It reflects a moment where options appear limited, when your inner voice feels muffled by overthinking or old narratives. You're not actually trapped. This card reminds us of that. But you may feel as if you are, because the mind has drawn invisible lines around your freedom. The ropes that bind the figure in the Eight of Swords are loose, and the blindfold could be removed if they chose to move. And yet, they stand still. Why? Because fear, more than anything, can make us forget that we have power. Right now, Leo, the cosmos is stirring a unique kind of internal tension. The moon forming a square with your sun's sign doesn't just symbolize discomfort, it's also a portal to clarity. Squares are sacred friction, they force movement. They're like the moment when a sprout begins to push through soil. The earth must break apart for new life to emerge. So if you've been feeling that restless fire in your chest, that quiet urge to speak up, shift directions, or even just breathe more freely, you're not imagining it. You're not alone in it either. This emotional tension is not failure. It's a symptom of growth. The discomfort you're feeling is your system alerting you to what's no longer aligned. And in many traditions of self-inquiry and conscious living, this exact moment is considered a turning point, not a breakdown, but a breakthrough. A call to move from reaction to reflection, from avoidance to acceptance. This isn't about fighting your thoughts. It's about learning how to witness them without judgment, letting them pass like clouds while you remain rooted in the awareness beneath them. There's something beautifully human about trying to control everything, wanting a clear sign, a solution, a rescue. But sometimes, the lesson is subtler. Sometimes life simply asks you to be present with what is, and to listen. Not to the noise of fear, but to the quiet voice that speaks when everything else falls silent. That voice doesn't shout. It doesn't argue. It simply waits, with patience, with wisdom, with love. If you're someone who's been waking up at odd hours, heart pounding, mind spinning, this isn't random. It's a natural response to an energetic threshold you're crossing. And no, you don't have to figure it all out right now. Sometimes, the most powerful act of courage is to simply say, I'm ready to let go. Say it softly. Say it aloud. Or type it below, if that feels good to your soul. Whatever you do, let it be a beginning. Because the truth is, Leo, this moment is not here to break you. It's here to reintroduce you to your own resilience. There's a flame inside you that hasn't gone out, it's only been waiting for the space to rise again. And perhaps that's what these restless nights are offering you, not punishment, but space. Space to feel, to pause, to remember. You're not meant to be perfect. You're meant to be present. And that is more than enough. Sometimes the most profound shifts don't come from grand gestures, but from the smallest decisions, those subtle turns of thought or quiet moments of redirection. After the heaviness of confusion and sleepless nights, there comes a breath of clarity. Not a roar, not a lightning strike, just a gentle but unmistakable invitation to look at things differently. This is the space that the Two of Pentacles invites you into. It speaks of balance, not perfection. Of motion, not chaos. Of reorganization, not retreat. You are not being asked to abandon everything. You are being encouraged to recalibrate, to find a new rhythm that reflects who you've become. The image on this card often shows a figure juggling two pentacles in a constant dance. There is a flow to it, a movement that suggests things are not meant to stay still. This isn't instability, it's intentional adjustment. You may be asking yourself, do I stay, or do I go? But sometimes, the question isn't about the place, it's about the pattern. What if the real transformation isn't external at all? What if it begins with how you carry yourself through the situation, how you speak, how you breathe, how you show up even when you're uncertain? This is where strategy becomes sacred, not in the sense of manipulation, but as skillful response. Just as a tree bends with the wind but does not break, so too are you being called to move with the present moment, not fight against it. In practices of mindful living, there's a principle that when a difficulty arises, we don't run or suppress, we observe. We lean in, just enough to hear what it's asking. And only then do we act, not from fear, but from insight. In that stillness, even decisions that once seemed impossible begin to sort themselves out. You don't have to abandon the job, the relationship, the dream. But maybe, you shift your approach. Maybe you speak up instead of swallowing your truth. Maybe you take your laptop to a different space. Maybe you ask for support instead of trying to carry it all alone. These may sound small, but energy moves through intention. And when you change how you approach your reality begins to shift in response. Write it out. Talk it through. Sit with it. Even 5 minutes of quiet awareness can change the tone of an entire day. Try this affirmation as a gentle anchor. I am moving toward the light without fear. Say it softly. Say it when you feel stuck. Say it when everything feels too loud. Words are not just sounds, they're energetic imprints. And when spoken with sincerity, they ripple far beyond what the mind can measure. There's also a deeper wisdom here that's often forgotten. The path of transformation is rarely linear. It's full of pauses, returns, and revisions. And that's okay. In fact, it's necessary. The rhythm you're being asked to dance with is not about speed, it's about resonance. About living from a place that doesn't just make sense, but feels right. So ask yourself gently, is there one small shift I could make today that would bring more balance? Could it be a different morning habit? A conversation I've been avoiding? A boundary I've been too afraid to set? Whatever it is, give yourself permission to move toward it, not to fix, but to flow. And if you've ever experienced how one small change opened the door to something unexpectedly beautiful, share it below. You never know who might be reading, and how your story could become the spark for someone else's turning point. Not everything that is lost is meant to be mourned forever. And not every moment of grief is a sign of defeat. Sometimes, what looks like an ending is simply the mind's way of showing us where our attachment lies. The Five of Cups carries this quiet reminder. At first glance, it reveals a figure cloaked in sorrow, staring at 3 spilled cups, so consumed by what's gone that they don't even notice the 2 full cups still standing behind them. This card doesn't judge the sadness. It honors it. But it also invites a shift in gaze, from absence to presence, from what was to what still is. When we linger too long on what has fallen, we lose connection with what's still offering us life. Gratitude, in this sense, is not just a pleasant feeling. It's a form of clarity. A soft but powerful act of returning to what is real. What remains. What supports. In the rhythm of daily life, it's easy to become absorbed by what didn't go our way, missed opportunities, fractured relationships, unspoken words. But the truth is, the things that are still with you, your breath, your resilience, your ability to feel, to grow, to care, are not small. They are portals. And through them, a new chapter can begin. In the quiet practices of self-awareness, it's often taught that what we focus on expands. When we dwell and lack, our mind narrows, colors fade, options feel scarce. But when we anchor our attention in what is still whole, no matter how modest, our internal world begins to widen again. It's not about denying pain or forcing joy. It's about letting both exist, while choosing to lean gently toward the cup that's still full. Try this, just once a day, before you reach for your phone, before the noise of the world rushes in, write down 5 things you still have. They don't have to be grand. Maybe it's the fact that you woke up today. Maybe it's the roof over your head, the cup of warm tea, a kind message from someone who didn't forget you. The point is not to distract yourself from sorrow, it's to remind your heart that it's not alone. That even in the weight of disappointment, there is still light. Another quiet practice? Reach out to someone, anyone, who's helped you lately, and simply say thank you. Even a single message of sincere gratitude creates ripples beyond the visible. It brings us back into relationship with the world, not as something to fear or control, but as something to walk alongside. There is a simple wisdom, passed down through generations of mindful living, that says, peace doesn't come from having more, it comes from wanting less. Or rather, from recognizing that what we have right now might already be enough. The 5 of Cups doesn't ask you to stop feeling sad. It asks, what are you still holding that you've forgotten to notice? What still stands behind you, waiting patiently for your eyes to turn? And if you begin to see the number 2 appearing often, on clocks, receipts, addresses, know that it's not random. The number 2 is a symbol of balance, of choices, of the invitation to see beyond duality. It's the essence of the 2 of Cups as well, an offering, a connection, a second chance, if only we're willing to turn around. So today, perhaps it's not about fixing or changing anything. Perhaps it's just about noticing. And letting that quiet noticing become the first step toward peace. Change doesn't always begin with effort. Sometimes, it begins with an invitation. A soft knock on the door of your attention. The Page of Cups speaks in this quiet voice. It doesn't rush in with drama or intensity, it offers curiosity, wonder, and a subtle signal that something new is approaching. If the last chapters have asked you to reflect, to balance, to see clearly what still remains, this part of your journey asks you to stay open to what is arriving, not just what you're leaving behind. Right now, the cosmic currents are shifting in your favor. As Mercury moves through the zone of communication, ideas begin to take shape, and messages once lost in static may now find clarity. This is not just a time to speak, but to listen, carefully, kindly. The next 48 hours carry a peculiar weight of meaning. Conversations may hold more than just words. Encounters may stir something deeper than logic. A seemingly ordinary interaction, a comment, an offer, a dream, might be the nudge you didn't know you needed. In practices that value presence and awareness, there's a phrase that often returns: when the student is ready, the teaching appears. But teachings rarely come in the form we expect. They can be wrapped in silence, in coincidence, even in confusion. That's why now is not the time to force answers, but to tune your inner ear. Stillness becomes the antenna for insight. Space becomes the cradle for possibility. Try setting aside 30 minutes at the end of your day. Not to analyze. Not to plan. Just to sit. To breathe. To watch the mind wander, then gently come back. Without your phone. Without a task. Just space. In this space, you may find that your body already knows what your mind hasn't yet caught up with. That your breath carries more truth than the noise around you. Over the next 2 days, pay attention, not obsessively, but attentively. Write down 3 symbols or signs that cross your path. They might seem random, a song lyric, a repeated number, the way light falls on your desk. But these small moments often hold unexpected resonance when we slow down enough to feel them. The Page of Cups doesn't demand we act, it asks us to notice. And in that noticing, something within us subtly begins to shift. It's said that when water is still, it reflects everything. But when it's agitated, all becomes distorted. Your clarity now comes not from doing more, but from becoming still enough to see what's already arriving. And when that message does come, because it will, recognize it not just for what it offers, but for what it awakens. The Page of Cups is less about the content of the message and more about your willingness to receive it with an open heart. If something finds you in the next 48 hours, an unexpected email, a conversation that moves you, a sudden idea that lights you up, come back here. Share it in the comments. You never know how your story might illuminate someone else's path. You never know how your noticing could ripple into someone else's awakening. And remember, openness is not weakness. It is the courage to stand at the edge of the unknown and say, I am here. I am listening. That's all the universe ever really needs. Even the most radiant among us need rest. Even the boldest lions must retreat to their den. After all the inner recalibrations, the sleepless nights, the balancing acts, the quiet awakenings, there comes a moment when what's most needed isn't more change, but deeper nourishment. The cards now speak through a triad of power and grace, the Queen of Cups, the Queen of Swords, and the Emperor. Together, they offer a message that is both gentle and commanding. Take care of yourself like you would a kingdom. The Queen of Cups knows how to feel without being drowned by emotion. She sits with her sensitivity without apology, holding space for herself and for others. Her presence reminds you that your emotional landscape is not something to fix, but to understand. Meanwhile, the Queen of Swords balances that fluidity with clear sight. She cuts through illusion with compassion and focus, not coldness. And then comes the Emperor, a symbol of structure, discipline, and sovereignty. This card doesn't ask you to become rigid, but to recognize where you need stronger foundations. Together, these archetypes form a triangle of inner alignment: heart, mind, and grounded will. Caring for yourself is not indulgence. It is the deepest form of responsibility. You cannot lead your own life, or offer your light to others, if you are running on depletion. The body, the mind, and the heart all require attention in their own ways. Small actions become powerful rituals. Maybe it's reducing caffeine after 3 p.m. so your nervous system can soften. Maybe it's adding a dose of omega-3 to support brain clarity. Or simply taking 10 minutes before bed to do a body scan meditation, to come home to yourself, part by part, breath by breath. And yes, financial care matters too. The Emperor energy doesn't just build castles in the clouds, it balances the books. Take a moment to look over your last 7 days of spending. Are there patterns? Leaks? Impulses that weren't rooted in need but in stress? Setting up an emergency fund, however modest, is more than a practical move. It's a declaration of future peace. It says, I trust that I'm worth preparing for. Emotionally, this is a time to open the windows. If you're in a relationship, speak honestly, even if your voice shakes. Let your partner in, not just to the good moments but to the worries you often keep quiet. If you're not with someone, resist the urge to armor up. Love often knocks on the door we least expect when we're no longer fixated on needing it, but are still soft enough to receive it. And as we round out this message, let the energy of the number 2 guide you. In numerology, this number reflects balance, duality, and divine dialogue. It whispers of cooperation, not competition. Of choices made not from impulse, but from clarity. When you feel torn between 2 options, ask yourself, which path brings me closer to peace, even if it's slower? To enhance this quiet journey inward, surround yourself with deep ocean blue, a color that calms the heart and sharpens intuition. Wear it. Drink from it. Sit with it. Let it remind you that calm isn't a place you find, it's something you choose, moment by moment. No matter what the outside world demands of you, your inner temple is sacred ground. Let this be the season where you return to it. Not just for a visit, but to rebuild it with care. You deserve that kind of devotion, not just from others, but from yourself. Maybe the most powerful thing you can do right now is nothing loud. No dramatic exits. No rushed declarations. Just presence. Just the quiet decision to no longer carry what was never yours to begin with. Leo, you don't need to roar to be heard, you only need to stand fully in who you are becoming. That alone speaks volumes. That alone changes the room. You're no longer the version of yourself that settled for less, that confused exhaustion with strength, or that mistook silence for peace. You are someone who has walked through the fog of confusion, stood still in the ache of uncertainty, and still chose to stay open to what's next. That matters. That's not small. And even if the world hasn't caught up to the new you yet, you've already begun the shift. Transformation doesn't always arrive with trumpets. Sometimes it's as gentle as a breath, a whispered yes to yourself, a shift in posture when you choose clarity over chaos. Think about this. What's one small thing you could do in the next 48 hours to align more closely with the life you actually want to live? It doesn't need to be life-altering to be meaningful. Maybe it's finally cleaning out that drawer that holds old versions of your identity. Maybe it's sending the message you've been afraid to write. Or maybe it's just sitting still long enough to hear your own heart again. You've heard a lot in this message. Cards. Cycles. Choices. But more than anything, you've been reminded that your power doesn't come from force, it comes from focus. From presence. From knowing that you are already enough, even as you continue to evolve. Like a flame that quietly warms a room without ever needing to be seen, your light works even when others don't notice it. Your inner fire is alive, and it doesn't need permission to shine. So tell me, truly, what would it feel like to believe, really believe, that you are not stuck? That you're simply in between chapters? That the discomfort you feel is not a sign of failure, but a signal that growth is happening? If anything I've said today has stirred something within you, I invite you to name it. Comment below with a number, a word, a symbol, anything that feels like your sign. The very act of acknowledging it creates space for more of it to arrive. And if you've already received your sign, if the universe has whispered to you today, don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Someone else might need to hear it just as much as you needed to receive it. Thank you, genuinely, for being here. Your presence, your energy, your willingness to go deeper is what fuels this entire space. Every like, every comment, every subscribe isn't just data, it's connection. It's how we keep this space alive and evolving. If this message resonated with you, let the universe know you received it. Like the video. Subscribe if you haven't already. And most of all, be honest about what brought you here today, because that answer might hold the key to what's coming next. You don't have to roar to be seen. You just have to be real. And right now, your presence is more than enough.